my 9/11 memory. Since
I figured you'd go into it.
I might as well, as I go into it, is that I was a sophomore in college, and I remember we had like a school meeting at like 9:30, and it was Central Time, so it'd have been 10:30 Eastern. And I remember I walked into this auditorium, and my buddy, his name was Mac, and he was helping set up chairs for the event. And the radio was on for some reason. They had like on a loudspeaker because I didn't have classes that morning. So I slept all morning. And so I, walked over to the auditorium. I went inside. Mac was setting up shit. Yeah, weird, because that would have never happened today. I would have known in my bed.
I was just thinking that. I'm just like,
exactly. I know
it's so crazy. You just didn't know the news until
you saw
the TV.
And so, people were talking in very serious tones. I couldn't figure out what was going on. Also, and Mac's like, "Hey, TJ, did you hear what happened?" I was like, "No, what?" And he said that a couple of planes have flown into the Twin Towers. I was like, "Whoa, that's not news I expected to hear." And I said, "Well, what happened?" He says, "One also flew into the Pentagon." I was like, "Get the fuck out of here!" I thought it was a joke when he said that. I was like, "No, buddy, I said, there's no fucking way a plane flew into the Pentagon. Like, you had me with the World Trade Center. Guys, good one, man. But come on." He's like, "No, I still remember his face." And he says, "No, I'm serious." And it was like weird tunnel vision and everything. And then I went upstairs to the main building of university, and everyone was huddled around the TV, and we're all watching this news. And I remember my buddy, my best friend at the time, Josh McCarthy was his name. And he said that, "Yeah, I hear that this might be the work of Osama bin Laden." And I was like, "Who? How do you know who?" And in my friend group, I was the smart one. I was like, how does he know who this like international terrorist is? I've never heard of this guy. But yeah, it was a while. And then we crowded around the TV to watch President Bush talk, and we heard about the war on terror. And I remember everyone is just like they tell you about how everyone was just bloodthirsty for war. Everyone could not wait to exact our righteous revenge on the infidels. Like, everyone wanted it. And I remember everyone panicking that gas was going to go through the roof. And I remember I had, my tank was pretty much full, but I was like, I'll go out just in case. Yeah, I went out. Every gas station on the block was just circled around with vehicles. And it was like that all day. And the gas didn't really rise that much either. Gas really didn't go up that much for several months later. But yeah, that was a wild time. And it's weird thinking about stuff like that and how it just changed. I saw a great TikTok on this thing where it was Bill Burr, actually. And Bill Burr was talking about how it annoys him when people say that, this generation is soft. These kids these days, these young folk, they don't know what's going on. It's like, he said, "What are you talking about? Like, they've been at war. This country's been at war their entire lives. Like, a bunch of them have served. They've lived through several economic collapses. They can't buy houses. This is one of the toughest generations in years. Like, it's weird that old people have the balls to shit on us after the world was handed to them on a silver platter like that."
Yeah, and
what was their 9/11? Like, what was your 9/11 if you were born in 1955? Like, you missed World War II. Yeah, you missed. Yeah, what was your 9/11? Anyway, it's just
fucking, I don't know what got us into Vietnam. Whatever the fuck.
Yeah.
It was the Cuban Missile Crisis.
The Cuban Missile Crisis that didn't even happen. Yeah. That's the closest. That's the closest they had to Vietnam, was something that didn't even happen. I mean, to 9/11, something that didn't even happen. Yeah.
So you brought up a couple points there I want to address. So I had this realization last night. I was thinking about it. So I saw someone say, Trump's the worst president in U.S. history. And I was like, yeah, you hear that a lot. And then I was like, fuck, is he even the worst president in my lifetime? And I thought about it. I was like, no, it's not even close. George W. Bush easily takes that. Like, if you compare Trump's list of accomplishments to Bush's, it's not even close. Like, we survived the Trump years. It was kind of crazy, but like nothing terrible. Like, the pandemic happened, but like that wasn't Trump.
Yeah, it wasn't Trump.
And so like that's not really on Trump. Yeah, he gave tax cuts to the rich. That sucks. That's gonna fuck us up. He appointed some Supreme Court justices that are gonna fuck us up for a long time. But that was really more Mitch McConnell than his doing. Like, what did Trump really do that was so egregiously bad? Now, if he successfully completes his fascist coup, then that's a totally different scenario. But up to this point, he didn't hurt us too bad. When you look at Bush, he gets into the presidency with that, like, by cheating. The Supreme Court just hands him the presidency because whatever. I don't know how that happened. Like, I look back at that time period, I'm just like, if I was alive, yeah, I knew that'd be taken out of context. If I was alive, if I was 27 years old in 2001, I would be like the most hated person. Like, I would not have been able to jive with what was going on back then. I would have been this like far left radical because there was no way I would have been bloodthirsty for war. Like, I can't imagine having that feeling ever. If Osama bin Laden personally dropped a plane onto my family directly, I can't imagine like being bloodthirsty to go to war. And I'd be against that. And I'd be like, yeah, fuck you guys. Like, and I would be hated. And that would just suck. But what was I saying? But Bush, he goes in, he Katrina, fucking the 2008 financial crisis, he goes out on probably the worst thing our country's ever done in my lifetime is the 2008 global financial crisis. And yeah, he just takes the cake easy. It's not even fucking close.
I agree. I've been saying this once again. We're right on target with each other. I've been saying this for a long time because people, it's not close. It is not close. First off, Bush was in 8 years, Trump was in 4. I mean, he's already got that on him. He's already.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you're comparing two.
Yeah,
but even if you just compare term one,
it's how many more people, how many more deaths is George W. Bush responsible for than Donald Trump?
So many more,
right? And if you don't even want to count the blood, you can count the treasure. Yeah, Trump did the tax cuts, but Bush did tax cuts too. I mean, he was known for them. He got us started on this decades-long irresponsible war on terror that's killed countless people, American and non-American alike. I mean, the one thing you can say about Trump is that Trump did have a more galvanizing effect on right-wing radicals, because right-wing radicals supported Bush. Don't get me wrong, they absolutely did, but they didn't love him like they love Trump. That's the one area that you can say that Trump had a bigger effect. But when it comes to their time in office, I don't think it's close. I think there's a good argument Reagan, well, it's not your lifetime, but Reagan was worse than Trump too. And don't get me wrong, Trump's bad, he's terrible, but when it comes to the actual death and destruction, which is really why it bothers me that there's been this renaissance for George W. Bush, and now he's just a kind old man.
And he's buddy with the Obamas. Like,
it's disgusting. I hate it so fucking much, man. Yeah, it's really gross. But I agree with you. Absolutely.
And I get the whole like President's Club thing. Like, there's only 4 people on the planet who can understand what you're going through. I totally get the relationship between Bush and Obama, but Michelle being buddy, like, that doesn't make any sense.
What are you?
I'm sorry, I would not.
That's a weird thing too, because look, that's true. If I had a job for 4 or 8 years and there were only 3 people on the planet that had that job, you kind of got to talk to them, right? I mean, you kind of have to. Like Trump, they've all made an exception for Trump. Like they're all like, nah, fuck that guy, which is like, I get why they do it, but that just makes Trump cooler to his supporters. Like, oh yeah, he's not part of the good old boys club, and which is insanity. But I remember seeing, so when the last time we had the peaceful transfer of power, Trump made a big deal about the fact that he didn't go to Biden's inauguration, which was out of order. That I can't think of another time when that's happened. Certainly not in my lifetime. And back in '92. George Bush Sr. lost his reelection bid to Bill Clinton, and Clinton, like a week after he got into the White House, or actually I don't know when he released it because I know until I was much older, but he released a letter that George Bush Sr. left in the desk of the Oval Office for Bill Clinton when he got there. And it's a very nice letter if you read it or whatever. It's like,
I've read this before, but it's not coming to mind what it says.
Yeah, he talks about, the first time he was in the White House and the experience that he had and his time, serving in the position and what an honor it was for his nation, wishing him well for the future. I was like, this is like something out of the Twilight Zone. Like I couldn't imagine something like that, especially after we saw with. Now, that's not to say that George Bush Sr. and Bill Clinton are great guys. That's not what I'm saying here. But the camaraderie I do kind of get when you're in a position like that, and very few people are.
Yeah, and that's like the other thought that I had with the whole George Bush thing. If 9/11 happened today, Republicans would be shitting down Biden's throat about causing the worst security failure
Oh, of
since Pearl
course, of
Harbor.
course, of
Like,
course. Yeah.
we'd be seeing ads on TV 24/7 of Biden licking an ice cream cone while terrorists snuck onto a plane behind him. Like,
Yeah.
it would be so, it wouldn't even be like they have to think about this. It would
No.
be instant reaction.
No.
And back then, Democrats not only didn't attack Bush for 9/11, they circled the wagons
They did.
around him.
They did.
And it's like, it feels like a different era. Like, I know that I was alive for that, but it feels like a different world. It feels like reading about World War II. Like, it's just like, oh, that's how things used to work. And that was in my lifetime. And that feels like a completely foreign concept to me now.
Yeah. I remember on 9/11, like when it happened that day, the people in the Congress or the Senate, maybe both, they came outside the Capitol building and they all sang "God Bless America." I remember singing that, and it stuck out to me because I noted that they sang "God Bless America," which is a infinitely superior song to the Star Spangled Banner. And I was like, the Star Spangled Banner is a shitty song. It's got to go. It is a terrible national anthem. It's all truncated. It's hard to sing. It's got the weird high parts.
We're putting a pin in that. That's our next topic conversation. But
but yeah, Bush had I shit you not, a 90% approval rating after 9/11. The entire country. Oh, I was gonna bring that up too, because you say you wouldn't have been for the war, but I don't know, a lot of people were, man. It was like 9 out of 10 people. It was like insane how there weren't a lot of Amy Goodmans around these days. Like, and this, you have to factor in how we grew up too. We grew up in a very different universe. Like, we weren't fighting any wars in the 80s, and no big ones at least. And we thought that, hey, we're just the good guys here, just chilling out, and we got attacked for no reason. And I mean, not to justify 9/11, of course not, but there was a reason they did it. And so we saw ourselves as, the shining city on the hill and the world police. So we were fully justified in our rage, in our mind. And looking back on it is very shameful, but that was the pretty common opinion, at least for the first year. And then after that, people kind of came to their senses, and more people are speaking out against it.
Yeah, you're right. Maybe I would have been, but I really
you can't know. I mean, you just know.
Can't know. And I would have grown up in a different time period. And would have been
I like to think that if I was a white guy in 1849, I would have been out there leading the charge against abolition. Most likely not. It's gotta be real. Most likely not. But that's just how it is.
I will say, I don't know if I would have been leading the charge against abolition. I do genuinely think I still would have been anti. I've always been a pretty strong pacifist, and I just can't imagine anything would have gotten my engines revving to go to war. Maybe I wouldn't have been outwardly not supporting it, but by 2003 I would have been probably.
Wait, are you talking about the Civil War or War on Terror?
Okay. Maybe I combined a couple.
Yeah, because I'm imagining Jonathan Cooper, Archibald IV, like some stodgy aristocrat in Alabama going up to black folks like, "Oh, I tell you, good sir, I will not fight for your freedom, but I support it." I can see you.
If I remember correctly, during the Civil War, my ancestors were being starved by the British, so like I wouldn't have even been here. But I don't know how I would have felt about it. Like, that's like so far back. Like,
of course, yeah.
But I'm like, if I would have been born in 1980, when I was 21 in 2011. I feel like I would have by 2000 after 9/11. Wow, after 9/11, I might have circled the wagons. But by 2003, when we're talking about invading Iraq, I don't think I would have been pro invading Iraq.
I mean? Yeah. A lot of people cooled down. Well,